Hey, welcome back to the Office 365 Performance Management course. This is Module 2, and it's all about Office 365 Data Centers and Network. I'm Paul Andrew, Technical Product Manager on Office 365, and I'm here with Alice Appleton. Alice, won't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me today, Paul. I'm Alice Appleton. I'm an Office 365 business planner, and I work on data center planning and our commercial education business.
All right, so Module 2, we're going to be talking about the data centers that Microsoft has, the network, and a little bit about some of the different things that connect between them. So let's get right into it. First off, we're going to be talking about what is in the Microsoft data centers, what they're like, and then moving out sort of with the network and the different aspects, everything that's between that data center and the client PC that the user connects from. Hey, we did want to talk a little bit about Microsoft's history in building data centers first. I've got a timeline here which shows where Microsoft's first data center was built. This is a long time ago, back in 1989. I really only heard about Microsoft working on data centers when Hotmail first came along. Hotmail was a Microsoft acquisition. And of course is one of our consumer email properties that we have. But you can see all these other milestones. Global Foundation Services there is a part of Microsoft that was created specifically to own, manage, deploy, and run the data centers that Microsoft has. And that team has just had a fantastic amount of experience in building and managing and maintaining those data centers. So the experience there is really second to none. And it is exciting to be able to offer these kind of data centers to customers. It's not something that I would want to go out in an organization and have to build for myself, I can tell you that.
So, Paul, what is Microsoft Online Services? What does that mean?
Wow, so I'm glad you picked on that one, Alice. That was one of the first names of Office 365. That's when the Office division first got involved in putting our servers online and making them available to customers. So we've obviously changed our name. We're now Office 365, and that makes up the workloads that we have: SharePoint Online, Exchange Online, Lync Online, and Yammer that are a part of that service. Oh, and also Office 365 Pro Plus, the client from the service, of course.
Cool. That's great history.
All right.
So over the past several years, we've actually invested $15 billion in our data center infrastructure. And as our cloud services continue to grow, from Office 365 to Azure to CRM Online and a whole host of other services, we'll continue to expand our footprint to reach our customers throughout the whole world. Today, Office 365 alone is available in 131 markets and 43 languages.
So, Alice, that's some pretty impressive stats there. You talk about us being one of the top 3 networks in the world. How do we stack up against our competitors?
So network performance and size is actually business confidential information. But independent analysts will make their own assessments of our network and those of our competitors. Across the analyst community, Microsoft is consistently in the top 3 networks in the whole world, with a host of other networks dropping substantially in scope and size after that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. So Microsoft has over 100 data centers. And on this slide, you can see a view of the locations that we publicly disclose through forums like the Office 365 Trust Center. You can check out the Trust Center online if you'd like to learn more about data security and privacy on Office 365. So, Paul, I don't know if you know this, but Office 365 is the fastest growing product in Microsoft's history. We've now had 20 consecutive quarters of triple-digit growth. With an increasing number of users on our service, we continually evaluate options for expanding our data center footprint. And lots of factors contribute to site selection, from proximity to customers, to network and power infrastructure, to workforce readiness.
All right.
So delivering our cloud services at scale requires us to completely restructure our technology, our processes, and our people. And perhaps the most difficult part is that last one. As Microsoft, how do we shift our own mindset to internalize the cloud-first, mobile-first world? There's a lot that we could dig into here, but ultimately we see 4 major factors at play for the IT pro with cloud transformation. First, talent. IT pros aren't just requirements recipients. They need to participate in the design of the whole system to ensure that its alignment with business requirements and business needs. Second, architecture. To deliver high-value experiences at cloud scale, we need to take a holistic and an integrated view end-to-end. You know, these days, the end user's scenarios and their business needs exist across all technology categories. And so we need to evolve from the traditional organization, where you have the facilities management team operating data centers, and then the IT team controlling the servers, and the network team managing the networks.
So hold on a second there,
Yeah.
Alice. I heard you say that custodians are going away and designers are coming along. So I used to work I used to work as a consultant, an IT consultant.
Yep.
We would regularly install servers and set them up for customers. What's happening to my job if I'm that guy?
It's a great question, Paul. So the really cool thing about the cloud is that your job actually gets elevated with cloud services. Traditionally, when we look at the software enterprise IT world, about 2/3 of budget is spent just keeping the lights on, and about 1/3 is left for strategic investments and transformation. Cloud services enable you to shift that balance so you get to spend more time providing higher value to the business through strategic efforts. This also means that your role changes a little bit in that now you need to really focus on being a consultant to your business partners and on being a financial analyst considering the different options that you have. And finally, being a change management as we all go through this cloud transformation together.
So I think that sounds good. It sounds like I have to learn new things, but I'm going to get to do a more interesting job.
Exactly.
All right. So let's talk about some of our networks in a little more detail. I mean, we talked about how large they are, but we have some great stats on this slide here talking about the growth in our networking. We're predicting that our network devices, that's the devices that make up the connections in our networks, the routers and switches and other devices, will have a 10 times growth in the current FY, that's FY15. So there's just an incredible growth seeing in the number of devices being deployed in those data centers to be able to manage those networks. We've actually peered with over 2,000 ISPs in that network that spans the world that Microsoft has. That network is used by Microsoft customers who access both Office 365 and other commercial services and also Microsoft consumer services. So it's a network that Microsoft invests in to make sure that Microsoft customers connecting to our data centers and our servers are able to get the very best performance when they're on that network. We also use that network. It connects between our data centers, and we use it for things like backup and redundancy and other reliability factors. So you can read some of those stats there on the slides there. I think it's interesting to look at just the amount of dark fiber that Microsoft has running our own network across the world. 1 million plus route miles of 10 gigabit per second or greater capacity deployed. It's pretty amazing stuff when you think about it. And in some ways, you're much better to be using the Microsoft network for connecting to Microsoft services than just connecting over the internet. Because of all that capacity that we have, it really is something that it's kind of the extension of the Microsoft data center. If you can't be in the Microsoft data center and connect to the servers, you want to be on the Microsoft network and connect to them that way.
So Paul, as we're seeing this exponential growth in the devices that we need to enable the network and just the sheer network capacity, how are we controlling for that in terms of growing out the network, improving our efficiency, and also improving the efficiency of our power consumption?
Yeah, so that's something that our Global Foundation Services team work on really carefully, Alice, is they spend a lot of time thinking about the power that they use as an integrated part of the data center itself. Because the data center is not just the servers that run, it is the power that it uses, it's the networks that it's connected to, and it's the backup scenarios of when things go wrong, because at scale, in data centers and networks the size of Microsoft, you have to expect something to go wrong somewhere,
right.
And it's about your mean time to recover rather than the mean time between that failure. So one of the things I know that we do for power is we use this thing called adiabatic cooling, where you might have an air conditioner in your office that uses a lot of power in order to create a chilling effect. Adiabatic cooling really is just about pumping water around and then having that water pumped over a wick and blowing a bit of air across it. So it doesn't use the same kind of power that an air conditioner does. It does rely on outside temperature to be lower. And so in a lot of data centers where we have lower outside temperature, it works great and it's all we need.
That's great. We can probably also help get reduction benefits in terms of power because of our large scale, right? Because we can invest in those alternative technologies.
Right, and I know one of the big aspects that goes into data center location is looking for what is the power source. I know we have one out by the Columbia River in eastern Washington. There's obviously a lot of power generation down there.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the next part of our network. So we have the data center, we have the network, and then Microsoft actually has an edge node network. These edge nodes don't hold customer data at rest, so we don't hold Office 365 customer data in these, but we can use these in order to improve the performance that customers get. You can see the green circles. They represent the 14 edge nodes which are currently live for Office 365, and they are supporting the Office 365 portal right now. So if you're using the portal, you're able to connect to one of these edge nodes from wherever you are. The yellow circles represent all of the other Microsoft edge nodes, and Microsoft edge nodes are also used by the Bing team and other teams. So Bing CDNs are in all of these locations, green and yellow. Office 365 has some additional requirements for hosting servers that are part of our system due to the commitments that we make to customers and various standards that Office 365 adheres to. So there is additional work that we have to do to make sure that locations are up to those standards, and we're continuing to work on expanding those. Right now, just the Office 365 portal is represented in those edge nodes, but over time you will see us use those for other workloads and be able to use that to improve performance to customers in these locations.
So as an end user, how might I notice the benefits of the edge sites as more of these come online?
Right, so as an end user, wherever you are, if you have one of these green nodes nearby you, your computer will actually be connecting to the green node in order to create its network or TCP connection. Once you're connected to the green node, we will have persistent connections back to our data centers, avoiding the time for setup and some of that round trip time that's required for those low-level networking protocols. So that's essentially what you're saving there, and it means less time to get your web page up or less time to get your mail synchronized.
Great.
So we've talked about data center, networks, and the edge nodes and the edge network. The next thing I want to talk about is network peering. So if we have this big global network, and we've repeated these stats here, we have connection points in 23 countries connecting with over 2,000 ISPs. How is that connection done? And network peering is really the process by which two organizations will agree to have network routing arrangements between themselves. And so these peering points are listed at peeringdb.com. And for internet service providers and network operators, that's the place where they can go to learn about peering that is available. Microsoft is open to inviting applications for peering at this webpage, microsoft.com/peering. And there's lots of information there about the requirements for peering a network with Microsoft's network and the process for going through and doing it. And so with peering with different ISPs, what a customer can do is really look at what ISP they're using or what network operators they're using between their network, their own customer network, across the internet to the Microsoft network. And so we talked about some of the capacity that the Microsoft network has, getting your connection to that network through the internet is the next question that you might have. And it's something that you would look into your network routing. You can use Traceroute and other tools to take a look at that and learn more about that. And you might talk to your ISP about the peering that they have, whether it's optimal, whether some improvements can be made to improve that performance. But network peering and the internet is a big part of an Office 365 customer connecting to our data centers. And so it's something that's worth learning a little bit about.
So Paul, one thing I wanted to make sure we talked about today was the connection between Office 365 and clients, and also the ease with which customers using Office 365 can move between online use and offline use.
Great. Well, yes, let's talk about that. And conveniently, we have a slide that talks about that as well. So yeah, there's one thing to talk about online and offline use. And of course, we all have the I'm in a train and I'm in a tunnel, or
right.
I'm on an airplane, or I've actually managed to get for a vacation where there is no data access. And so we all have that. But actually, a lot of people don't realize that by using our clients, because they do background synchronization, they can actually isolate the user from any variabilities in network performance. So if there is something that's going on the internet or on your own network inside your organization, people who are just doing web browsing may be stuck and they may be outside their offices calling down the halls. But if you're using one of our rich clients, you can keep working because they will synchronize later on when the network comes back, and you can keep working away in Outlook or OneDrive for Business Sync. And actually, our web applications provide the same offline support. OWA for iPad and iPhone applications that we have, and our OWA application for PC web browsers, desktop web browsers, make use of HTML5 offline support. So you can use these applications offline and they will synchronize in the background. So the clients are a very important part of the network end to end as well.
So you said that Outlook handles slow networks. Just how slow can the network actually be?
For Outlook to remain connected, you can have connections as slow as a half a second to about 800 milliseconds. And if you have Outlook configured correctly, if you've got Outlook 2013 Service Pack 1, and you're going to be using cached mode for Outlook, you can get some pretty you can keep Outlook going with some very slow networks. 500, 800 milliseconds, that's a lot of latency on your network. All right, so that brings us to the end of talking about the connection from the data center to the customer or the user of Office 365. And let's take a look at that one more time. So here's a diagram which previously I would have shown this diagram to customers, and we would have thought of this diagram as being the cloud and the PC. But there really are a lot of things in between, and it's useful to know about these things in between so that you can either improve the performance there or so that you can find issues that may be going on. There may be bottlenecks or other problems. And so you can see here there's the Office 365 cloud with our server workloads. That's where our servers actually run in our data centers. And then we have our own network that connects those data centers and connects to customers. And then we talked about those edge nodes that can offload some of that low-level TCP connection from customers and reduce that latency that customers have to deal with. We talked about internet peering and routing. One thing we didn't talk about was use of content delivery networks. And Office 365 uses content delivery networks for static content. So you can find files like images which are part of the Office 365 portal or are part of the OneDrive for Business homepage. They'll be stored in a content delivery network. And content delivery networks mean that we are using either the Bing content delivery network or a third-party content delivery network, and all those static files are much, much closer to end users. They're in servers in most cities in the world. And then the customer internet connection is actually something we're going to be talking about a lot more in the rest of this course, and how the impact of the customer network connection can have on performance or on the network connection to Office 365.
But Paul, I would assume that most customers who are deploying Office 365 for the first time already have an internet connection that they've been using for years. So why would starting to use Office 365 create internet or network issues for them?
So that's a great question, and it is not well understood, I think, because Office 365 certainly is a web application, and you would naturally assume that you could just run it and you're good to go. But actually, Office 365 does have a different profile of internet connectivity than web browsing. Web browsing is typically very transient connection to the internet. You put in a URL, you go to a web page, and then it downloads some images and some other files, and then you're done. You can close that connection off, and you go away. And your internet connection at a customer site is going to have a firewall. It's probably got a proxy. It might have some other devices in there as well. And it's going to need to, in terms of doing web browsing, it's going to close off those connections, and it's going to go, okay, that user's gone away, we're ready for the next user. And there's some sort of parallelism that they're able to get there, and there's some natural sort of actions that they take based on that traffic profile. Now, Office 365, let's just take Outlook for a start. It's going to open 6 to 8 connections to our servers, to the Exchange Online servers, and it's probably going to keep those open most of the time in order to synchronize email and do other things in the background. So that's very different to the type of internet connectivity that people are used to. And just because of that, you need to look at your internet connection. And so we're going to talk about planning for that and troubleshooting that later on in the course.
Great. One solution that we wanted to talk about that allows you to improve your network reliability and performance is Azure's ExpressRoute. ExpressRoute is a private, dedicated line from your network to Azure, and it also has the added benefit of enhancing your security. ExpressRoute is not available for Office 365. Instead, as you already mentioned, Office 365 uses internet connectivity, which increases the importance of evaluating the peering and the network operators.
Absolutely. So another thing we wanted to very briefly talk about is Office 365 Dedicated. Alice was just talking about having a dedicated network connection with Azure ExpressRoute through to Azure servers. Office 365 does have a dedicated offering which shares space in the Microsoft data centers, and it uses the Microsoft network, but it can also use dedicated network connections from the servers which are assigned to those customers directly back to the customer network. So in most of this course, we are not going to be talking about Office 365 Dedicated, but it's important to know that we do have that offering available for customers requiring dedicated both server space and network connectivity. All right, so we've come to our summary time, Alice, we have been talking in this module about Microsoft data centers for Office 365. We've been talking about the network connection, and Alice, you shared with us about how Microsoft has one of the top 3 networks in the world, which is great for customers to be able to access that and use that and avoid, the internet is great in some places around the world and it's not so great in other places. And so having that as an option for customers to get on and get Microsoft content to those customers faster, I think is fantastic. We talked about our edge network and content delivery networks, ISP peering. What we really wanted to get across to you in this session is that there are a lot of things there that are worth learning about in connecting from that user PC through to the Office 365 data centers. Alice, I wanted to thank you for coming along and sharing this with us today.
Oh, thanks again, Paul, for having me. This has been fun.
All right, and I hope you will come back, our viewers, and next up is Module 3, and we're going to be talking about planning for your internet connectivity for Office 365, and this module will be about Exchange planning. So please join me. I'll have Joshua Mayer along in the studio who will be talking about that with me. Thanks very much.